Oh man, that's a lot of imps. Hey Luke, take this, and if anybody asks, you've never heard of midichlorians. But Ben, my uncle says I shouldn't trust you old hippies. Don't worry, Luke. Your uncle will never know. Hello, friends. It's Gear. Welcome to Making Star Wars, a series where we make backgrounds and settings for all your Star Wars figures. On today's episode, we are going to make some open crates. Before we get started, this is a new channel, so please like and subscribe. You will subscribe. So previously we made these block crates, and it was suggested that we make some that can be opened. So that's what we're going to do today. What I'm going to try with is I'm going to use a thinner foam board here. This is 1/2 inch. And then we're going to make the walls with the foam core. The base, not including the walls, will be about, let's go with 1 3/4 by 3 3/4. That's about the size of an action figure. Okay, one. And I'm only planning on making 2, but it never hurts to make some extra parts in case you screw up. Alright, we're going to go 3 3/4. Okay, so there's going to be our bases, side panels. Now I want the side panels to be the same size as the base. So we want 3 3/4. We're going to make our sides 1 3/4. Width from what I cut is like 2 1/16. So I'm going to go back to our board, and we are going to cut a couple of 1 3/4 strips. It works out that I happen to have cut that at 4 inches because now I'm just going to split these. Okay, so basically you want these your side panels to match your base panel or your base piece. And then your ends, the thickness of two of these together is going to be about a quarter when you pull the paper off. So add a 1/4 inch to this, and that's how wide you want your end panels. So you basically just going to glue them together and make a box. Go ahead and peel the paper off. So my pieces are cut. I've got two bases that are 1.25 inches by 3.25 inches. I've got 4 side walls, which are again 1.75 inches by 3.75 inches. And then my end pieces are 1.75 inches high, 2 inches wide. Now I'm going to mark out the lines, but what we're going to do is we're going to offset this piece to balance it in between so that we make an equal amount here and here from the 4-inch. So it ends up being actually about a 1/16 of an inch on each side. And then I'm going to go 1 inch. 1 inch from each end. So we got 1 inch and 1 inch. Then I'm going to go through and mark them all that way. Alright. Then we're going to take our end panels, and they are 2 inches, so we're just going to line that up and mark off the middle at 1 inch. Now on these, I eyeballed a lot, and there are some definite crooked spots. And the thing is I went through and I made all my circles first. That was the problem. My center lines are all pretty good, except for where I altered them to try and fit the circles. But hopefully we're measuring everything this time, and we won't end up offset. We got all of our vertical lines are marked out. Now we want to do the horizontal ones, which 1.75 inches, we need to cut that in half. So to get the middle of the 1.75 inches, we're going 7/8. And we're going to go around and do all of the horizontal lines. And then do the horizontal lines on your side panels. Again, 7/8. I've not made this before. These projects are all first times. So we are learning together. Making happy little crates. I do this with leather sometimes. I'm going to use these marked out and just put them together and transfer one to the other. Alright, so all our lines are marked. I think we're not going to cut on these. We're just going to draw them. So let's go ahead and just take a ruler and just draw all those lines you just marked. Just go over them like 3 times, pressing a little bit harder each time. I guess 3 or 4 times. Just making a dent. And I just realized that that is totally a screw up. Got to cut another panel. Alright, so I screwed up. And I drew my lines connected. And we are not supposed to do that because they're supposed to have a circle in the middle. So I had to cut another panel. And this time I'm just going to transfer. I'm not going to measure them out because this is the quicker way. I wasn't thinking. What we need now is that marker cap that we used for those circles. I believe this is the marker. Yep. Alright. Well, this isn't a bad thing necessarily, because now I can actually figure out, use this as my experiment. Now remember when I started I said, you know, it doesn't hurt to cut extra pieces? Yeah, that would have helped here. But I had to go back and do one. Okay, so that's going to offset. So I had to think about this to try and get this centered. And what I came up with that I'm hoping will work is I wrapped a piece of tape around it, and since I had this one, I got it centered, and then I just made little marks on the tape that give me my cross pieces. So I should be able to line that up. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to do a little bit of the lines. About 3/8 of an inch on each of these. Then we should be able to line this up. So you push your cap down and give it a little bit of twisting. To make the imprint. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Maybe you'll think of a better way to do it, but I think that works out well. I'm going to try something to speed this up. Okay, so on your side walls, you're going to want to draw your ends in, and then maybe about a 3/4, 1 inch line in the middle. Then we're going to try taking the cap, center that cap as best that we can, press, and twist a little. Now with this thinner foam core, you don't want to push it too hard because you will go right through and misshape it. Imprint all your circles. I'm going to go back and look and see if there should be another line here, if these should actually be split. I think that they'll look fine, like that. But I'm going to go and do some research. The scanner crew does indeed have a line down the middle. So those two lines are about 2 inches apart. So we're just going to go through and mark the middle on all of these. And line this ruler up along all of them and do all those lines at once. Look at that. So much quicker. I'm going to do the pattern on the bottoms as well. So I am just going to transfer it. And we're just going to take our already made panel, put it down, make some marks. So we're just repeating that same method to do the bottoms here. Hey, like and subscribe. Maybe I'll buy a chair that doesn't squeak. So now we have, yeah, look at that. That's coming together. Next step is to glue them together. Before we glue them, we're going to put them together and see if your lines are lining up. Because there's going to be a little bit off in spots. Measurements might be not be perfect. So we're going to go through and choose our panels for what sides we want and how we want to put them. Making sure that our lines are going to line up all right. See, that one doesn't. So flip it over there. That's good. So those are going to line up good. And check our ends. And make sure that we can get our lines as even as we can. Because we're going to connect these lines. So you want them to be as close as you can. So we're going to set it out so we know how it's going together. then we'll do the same for this one. And that one looks perfect. Alright. So stage those out to where how we're gonna glue them. And so that I remember how they go, I'm gonna put a little mark on the bottom of each of these. And we're just gonna glue these together. So we're going to want glue along these sides so that they glue onto the ends. So we're going to start with just dabbing a little bit of glue along those edges. Then just put some glue around the edge of these. And try to, see, I put this one directly in the middle. Should probably try to put it more towards the inside of the crate so it doesn't squish out the bottom. Then we got our mark. So our mark was towards me, so it's going in like this. Put your sides on. And then put your ends on. Square it off as nice as you can. Push all your pieces down. And including, give a push on your bottom piece because that might have risen up. Now if at this phase you find that your top's not level, don't worry about it. We can clean that up later. And we're going to set those out to leave those to dry for the night. Make a lid for one of these before we move on. So it's 2 inches by just over 4. So we'll take more of the board. We're going to use this other panel that I made that I screwed up on. It's that size there. And we're going to use that for the inside of the lid. So this panel will fit on just right. This panel doesn't quite fit in there. So I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And it should fit decently, not too tight, not too loose. We're going to have to take just a little bit more off of the end. Alright, that'll fit good. So we're going to glue this piece to this piece, but first we want to transfer the pattern. Mark out our lines. Alright, there we go. We have the beginnings of the lid. Let's go ahead and draw those lines down on the sides. Before we glue this bottom piece onto the bottom of the lid, I'm going to take the nail file and round those edges a little bit, because once it's on, you won't be able to get at it, because it'll be on there. You won't be able to get the right angle. So just round that exposed edge, leave the other one flat. It's going to glue on there. Glue that on. Then we're going to go ahead and stick the lid on, make sure that it fits. There we go. I'm going to let that sit and dry. Make sure when you're doing this, though, that you don't have any glue coming out on any of the edges, because that'll end up gluing your crate shut. Now that we're glued up, that's probably still a little bit wet. We'll put that aside. What we want to do is we want to round all our edges a little bit. So I'm just going to take a nail file and just kind of round them a little. Then my seams, where they join together, those are off a little bit. So I'm also going to file those. Just try and make them a little bit more flush. Okay, then round my corners up. And I'm going to leave the top edges sharp. And then we're going to extend those lines around the corners. Okay, got all those around the corners. Then I'm going to take the nail file again and just hit those corners a little bit to define them out. And we're only doing the top edge. Take off the corners. Open up the cracks. There we go. Mod Podge black paint mixed in with it. This is a base coat and a sealer. This is sealing it and strengthening. It's kind of putting like a shell over top of the styrofoam. And I am going to right now give credit to what is this channel? Black Magic Craft. He is the man that I got this idea from. He does some fantastic gaming terrains. Some wonderful stuff. Go and check him out. Black Magic Craft. I think I'm going to do all but the bottoms. And then we'll come back after it dries and it's not so tacky. We'll come back and do the bottom after. On the outside here, I'm trying not to get too much gummed up into the cracks. So I'll come back and kind of wipe it out a little bit. Okay, so before you lay it down to let it dry, you want to make sure you don't have any drips. So the major place that it drips is on the edges. And come over with a brush, it often leaves a drip. So go around and kind of check all your edges. And now I'm kind of wishing that I would have waited on the inside and done the inside and the bottoms at the same time, because they give me something to hold. I think our coat is dry, our base coat. Let's start painting. So I'm going to do some gray. I'm going to put a drop of my favorite gunmetal. And it's inside, I am going to put one drop of black. Should darken it up. And in the spirit of the scanner crew, I am going to do this with some blue. So I'm going to put, just for the inside, just a drop of blue. So we're just going to paint the inside. Good enough. May have to come through with a second coat. Okay, there is the inside. For the outside, we're going to start with a gray. I'm going to do my favorite little gunmetal. We're going to put 2 drops of the gunmetal in. 3 or 4 drops of the blue. Trying to make it more blue on the outside. It's a little light, but I think the black wash will darken it up, so we're just going to roll with this. And we may have to mix up a second batch of this paint, so I'm hoping I made enough. Come through with a second coat. It's time to beat them up. Gonna add some silver dry brush in here. Again, gunmetal gray. This is my favorite metallic color. So what we're going to do is we're going to dry brush, put a little paint on your brush, wipe it off. Then we're just going to hit some edges. This may be too fine of a detail to see on camera right now, but we'll try. I'll make it a little bit heavier. So basically there's just a very little bit of paint left on the brush. So when you're hitting your piece, just a little bit comes off, and generally on the uppermost parts of it, the protruding details, and so it gives a worn feel to it. Then I'm just going to go lightly over the whole thing a little bit. And the less paint on your brush at this point, the better. And you'll find that if it's not coming off, push a little harder. And you see what this is doing is making it look more scuffed up paint. Then I'm going to do the underside of the lid here. There you go, there's your dry brush. I'll let that sit for a little bit, and then we'll come back and do the black wash. Time for black wash. Oh, Mando, why are you doing that? Always passing out. Just take that helmet off. Maybe you can breathe better. We'll let it sit for a second, and then we're going to try wiping it like we did on the arches. Probably get my fingers up under there. Black wash is all dried. Now I'm going to take some cotton and just buff them up. So I'm applying just enough pressure to buff some of that wash off. Yep, that's making a difference. So I got one more to buff up, and then I'm going to spray it with the polyurethane. If you liked this video, hit the button. Your comments are welcome. And subscribe if you want to see more.